Welcome to the Bowel Chronicles, where we dive deep into the world of bowel health. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and on this podcast we have raw and candid conversations with individuals facing various bowel conditions and illnesses. Through personal stories and shared experiences, we illuminate resilience and courage in the face of adversity. Be reminded that each story is personal and unique. These conversations are not to be taken as medical advice or to replace guidance from a doctor or healthcare provider. Our aim is to inspire and empower through these amazing stories, amplifying voices often unheard. So join us as we embark on this journey together. Sit back, listen, and be inspired. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Bowel Chronicles. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and today we are joined by this lovely dream team. I can nearly get my words out today. Mel and Sam in Hertfordshire. Correct me if I'm wrong, ladies.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Hi.
You're so welcome to be here. You are a friendship duo, an amazing, magnificent powerhouse, as I like to say. And I've followed you on social media for quite a while now. We have had this date in the diary, and I feel like I've just been waiting for it to come forever. Like from last year. It's been in the diary since last year.
We postponed it, didn't we? I think from was it October? I think.
Yeah, you were very ill, weren't you? Very ill.
Yeah, that's right.
We're excited to finally meet with you and talk everything.
So let's kick it off. You both run Friends with a Stoma Instagram group, and obviously you've become friends because you have something in common. To kick it off, Sam, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory of how you came to have a stoma, what was going on, what was happening in your life?
So mine basically, I ended up with my stoma because I had endometriosis, and that basically led to having to have part of my bowel removed. So basically, it's all started kind of, I think 2012, 2013, I suffered with endometriosis, that there was nothing to do with my bowel at that point. It just, bad periods. I don't know if you know much about endometriosis, but it generally gets like passed off as a bad period and it kind of goes from there. So I suffered for like quite a lot of years, constantly back and forth to the doctor, complaining of pain, it hurts, all this sort of stuff. Just get given kind of medication, painkillers, all that sort of thing. And then eventually...
What age were you when that first kind of started?
So I would have been sort of 22, 23, so very early 20s. And then that's when I sort of noticed it. And then, it finally got to the point in, I think it was 2016, that I'd finally sort of said to my doctor, look, this is something wrong here. I'd already Googled, as you do. I found out this thing called endometriosis, went to my doctor and said, I think I have this. And I think it was 2016 when I finally was referred to like a gynae specialist who did a laparoscopy, which is basically the only way to actually diagnose endometriosis. It's like a keyhole surgery. They go in, lasers and kind of cameras and things, and they can see the growths and then they can remove them there as well. So I had that, and I had endometriosis removed. And then the kind of story over the next, I don't really know, a few years, was that pain came back and I'd have another laparoscopy and have it removed again. So each time it kind of just got a bit progressively worse. And then they got to the point when I noticed, I think it might have been, forgive me my dates, but I think it's like 2021. So this is like coming towards like a decade later, that my bowels started then, I really noticed when I had a period, then I'd be like, oh, it's hurting my bowels as well. And bowel movements would become painful. And, and we're talking like a monthly cycle here. So every month, it kind of gets worse. And then, because for me, it was almost like directly related with a period. So it was tied into my endometriosis. And your own body, don't you? So I knew there's something not right here. And, I think I even went to the doctor at one point and I said, my bowels, when I'm on my period, my bowels are like excruciatingly painful. There's something wrong. And this doctor actually said to me, no, they're not connected. That won't be why you've got... Then I know. And like looking back on it now, isn't that just shocking? But he actually said to me, no, it's not connected. And obviously I'm sitting there thinking, well, you're wrong, because I can tell you for a fact, like I'm in this pain all the time. But anyway, that kind of happened. But in and amongst all of this, I'm having this kind of various, I think I ended up having maybe my third or fourth laparoscopy. I had it with a consultant who basically went in and said, this is like awful. Like your ovaries are attached to your uterus is attached to your bowel, like the whole kind of reproductive structure is like fused to your bowel, like my lower bowel. And he basically was like, this is he couldn't really do anything because it was almost like too dangerous to tamper with, because it was like so severe at that point. And it kind of like validated the way that I was like, well, I know, I know, like you've just told me something that I thought I already knew. But anyway, so he kind of, that was quite deflating that he couldn't then sort of fix me at that point, because you kind of wait all this time. But what he had to do was discharge me from his care and re-refer me to a specialist, like an endometriosis specialist, but also I know to then have surgery with, they call it like dual surgery. So it would be with a colorectal surgeon and an endometriosis specialist. So they could do surgery together basically, so that if there was anything to be done, like shaving like endometriosis off the bowel, they would get the bowel consultant to do that, because he's specialized just in case they perforate the bowel or something. So kind of that was I think I had that surgery in, I had that surgery 2024, but prior to that, the laparoscopy that I had that sort of diagnosed all that, I think was 2022, the summer of 2022. So I sat on a wait list for that surgery for 18 months to 2 years, kind of in that for this surgery. And it's just that whole time, you know, the pain was unbelievable. You know, it's like, I knew there was something wrong with me and I couldn't do anything about it because I was just on the wait list for surgery. You know, you call up to say, where am I on the list? And they just go, oh, you're not at the top. You've got loads of people in front of you. And it's that kind of same story that you hear of all these people that are on these wait lists on the NHS. So that was kind of, it was really tough. Like it really affected kind of at one point, like my mental health was so, because I was just living in like chronic pain and my mental health was so bad at one point. And I was at the doctor's talking to her about it, and she was kind of sort of push antidepressant type tablets. And I said to her, I was like, I don't need antidepressants. What I need is effective pain management and surgery. Like I need you to like help me with the root of the cause. Don't just give me medication to try and mask the feelings that I'm now feeling as a result of the pain. So anyway, I didn't take any like antidepressants. I said, I just need pain management. I need help. But anyway, we got to I kept pushing and pushing, and basically I just kept sitting on this list, and kind of separately to the whole stoma bowel stuff, me and my husband also were going down the route of IVF as well, waiting for our funding to be approved, and because obviously endometriosis can affect like fertility and stuff like that, so we were struggling to like conceive, and it got to the point when we actually got our IVF funding approved, but when we had like a first scan, they scanned me. Bear in mind, this point, I'm still waiting for this dual surgery. They scanned me and they basically said, like, we could proceed, but like one of your ovaries is completely inaccessible. We can't touch it. The other one's got a big old cyst. Like, and don't forget, like at this point, my bowel is still fused to my uterus. So even if it was successful, what the heck, like that's not an ideal situation. So anyway, we had to say, right, okay, well, look, this is now impacting our chance of IVF. You know, it's a big deal. So we said to IVF, look, let's pause. I'm going to go back to my endometriosis specialist. I'm going to tell him what's happened. That's exactly what I did. As soon as he found out that I was like still on the wait list, I don't think he realized I was still waiting. Bearing in mind, this is like 18 months later or something. And that it was affecting IVF. He was like, right, I'm just going to get you in. So he got me in like the next available date, which was like about, I think the first day got cancelled. So I think it ended up being about 6 weeks later. So it ended up being April 2024. He booked me in for dual surgery. He got a colorectal surgeon as well. They had the surgery planned. And basically I went into it thinking it was endometriosis surgery, but with the bowel surgeon present in case there like of any bowel complications. But what happened is I actually just woke up from this, like, this is what ended up being like a 6-hour surgery. And I'd had to have part of my bowel removed because my endometriosis was so severe between my uterus and my bowel that they obviously saved my uterus because of, trying to have a family and stuff like that. They managed to save my ovaries as well and detach those, but they just couldn't save that section of my bowel that sits behind the uterus. So they had to remove it. And by removing it, they did, so I had like a lower anterior resection, which is basically just taking away a part of the bowel, reconnecting it. But because it was so low down, like in the bowel system, they had to then give me a temporary stoma to sort of protect that site while it healed. So I then woke up with this temporary, I had an ileostomy. And I just woke up like my whole world had just completely changed, because I'd gone from going in to having like endometriosis surgery to all of a sudden and thinking, oh, I'm going to have this surgery. And once I've had this surgery, we can just start IVF again and carry on, because that's like a huge priority. And all of a sudden it was, no, you need to have this stoma now. And your stoma is going to be like, okay, it was always going to be temporary, but that just dominated my life from that point. And it was a shock, because it was unplanned. So when you go into surgery, they reel off all these risks, don't they? They're like, oh, well, just like we warn you, we could like, we may have to remove an ovary, we may have to remove a fallopian tube, we may have to give you a take away part of your bowel. But I never was prepared. No one ever said to me, if you have to have part of your bowel removed, you may have to have a stoma. Like, do you know what a stoma is? Do you know what that entails? Do you know, like, nobody ever said that to me. So when I woke up with a stoma, I was just like, my world is just like completely turned on its head. And I just all of a sudden had to just rely on like the staff in the hospital. Like, I ended up in the ICU I think I was in there for 4 days, or 4 nights, I think, I'm not sure exactly. And then I was in the ward for a couple of nights, about a week in hospital. And then all of a sudden I was just living with this stoma. Had
Did
to
you know
obviously
what
learn.
stoma was?
I didn't. Do you know, this is a crazy question, because I knew what a stoma was because Mel had hers before I had mine, but Mel and I had never talked about it properly, did we? We like sort of, we knew of it, like obviously when Mel tells you her story, you'll see how she then ended up with her stoma. So I knew that it was like a stoma. I knew kind of like what it did, but we never went into detail about like, tell me everything about your stoma. Like we just didn't have those.
You knew quite a lot. I mean, we were good friends beforehand, so you knew, times when I've gone, oh, I need to go to the toilet and sort myself out. But to actually have one yourself was,
like, I knew nothing about, like, I knew Mel would like change a stoma bag, but I didn't know what that entailed. Like, I didn't know what like kit she carried around. I didn't know how often. I didn't know how it impacted her life.
So that's why.
Yeah, we never had those kind of conversations. Like,
you go into surgery,
yeah,
abdomen looks totally fine. Yes, you're going to have a few incisions, from chemo surgery. You've been used to that over the years, and all of a sudden now you're waking up and your body looks completely different with this contact. That's a complete shock. I mean, personally, I had time to get my head around my surgery.
Yeah, like I didn't even comprehend that I would wake up and have this, like, and to then adapt your life to learn how to manage it. And and I was in so much pain. Like, the pain, obviously anyone who's had these surgeries know, it's just the abdominal like area it's so painful, isn't it? And you can't move. I had like a cesarean style cut, where they'd removed the bowel and had all these incisions and the stoma site itself, and the whole situation was very daunting. And I think from a psychological perspective as well, I went into that surgery, I've been waiting for it for like sort of almost like 18 months to 2 year kind of like length of time. And in my mind, I'm like, right, get this surgery done. I can then move on with IVF. I'll be out of pain. And then all of a sudden, that wasn't my life at all. It was, no, actually, you need to learn how to live with this stoma now while you heal. I mean, I was really lucky. Well, I see myself as lucky because I didn't ever like having my stoma. So I was lucky that my reversal was only, it was 4 months later. So I had a really good surgeon who was really an advocate of like, let's get you reversed as soon as possible. But so for me, because of the way that I viewed my stoma, I was like, oh, I can just get on with life with a stoma eventually. But I was really looking forward to that reversal because for me, I had to have that to then be able to move on with like IVF. So I had like different kind of viewpoint. It's not just like, oh, this is just my life. It's just, oh no, I need to get rid of my stoma as well so I can kind of move on with the next stage of my life. Like, I'm 34 now, I'll be 35 in April. It's kind of like there is a time, there's a ticking time on like IVF and things that anyone who's been through it knows, the younger you are, the better chances you have. And so it was a huge deal for me, from like a psychological perspective and like a physical perspective of actually then dealing with living with a stoma. I was really lucky in the sense that I had a great support structure, like friends and family anyway. And having Mel as well, because Mel, like I said, she already had her stoma. Obviously, you'll find out why she had hers in a little while, but she was then like, if I didn't have Mel, I don't know if I would have coped as well. Like, even you were there, you just happened to be visiting me in hospital the first time the stoma nurse, showed me how to change it, which was a really emotional time. Like, even thinking about it now, I feel emotional because it was just this overwhelming kind of this sight of you've got this stoma now that it looks, it doesn't look very nice. It hurts. It's got all these stitches around it. You're in pain. And Mel was there, and as soon as the stoma nurse left, I just burst into tears, didn't I? I was just so Mel, from that, from day one, Mel's been a great support, and she still is, and she still is.
But we both are.
Yeah, it's quite nice that we then ended up. Well, we were friends before.
Well, we'll talk about
that. We'll talk about it in a while. But we knew each other before. It just so happened we both ended up with a stoma. So yeah, it's been a pretty it's very
people kind of come into your life and you're like, oh, how all things kind of connect. I think
feel was this always the reason we were supposed to be friends? Is this why the universe threw us together? I don't know, but yeah.
Tell us a little bit about reversal surgery, because not a lot of people kind of tend to go into reversal surgery, and I think there are a lot of people out there who have questions about reversal surgery. What's your experience of it?
I actually had a really good experience of it. I know we are all different. So anybody who has a reversal, I think something I've learned from, Instagram and things like that is, I feel like this isn't necessarily fact, but this is kind of the general idea that talking to people I've understood is the more of your bowel you've kind of had removed, the looser your bowels are then after reversal surgery. I mean, that's not fact, and that's not this is right or wrong, but that's generally. So I was quite lucky that I had about 10 centimeters removed, and so I just took the advice. So my tips for reversal surgery would kind of be, there's not much you can really do to prepare for it in the lead up in terms of your body, because ultimately you're just having your stoma reversed, and it's a really simple surgery for most people. I mean, everyone's different, but for me, there was no other incisions made in my stomach. They cut around your stoma site, and they effectively sew up the little hole that's in your ileostomy, and they basically poke your stoma back, your bowel back in. I mean, I'm no doctor, so obviously, but for how I understand it, that's how they do it. Cut around it and poke it back in, and then they leave that hole open. So it's like I think they call it a purse string closure. So it's basically like an open hole, and it's like a gunshot wound. It's really disgusting, but it's really interesting. And what that does is that then just heals from the inside out, kind of from the bottom to the surface. So if you imagine a really deep hole, imagine the bottom of it kind of I don't know, kind of healing first, and then as it gets close to the surface, it closes. It took about 7 weeks to heal, but you just have to get it, go to the nurse, go to your your GP nurse, and she'll dress it, or they'll dress it every couple of days to start with. They'll keep an eye on it for infection, so just make sure you're going to those appointments to get that redressed. Other than that, I think it's planning in terms of when you come out of surgery, still eat low fiber for the first week or 2 weeks, just to your body, your bowel needs to learn how to work again down there. It's been working up to the point where your stoma was, but the rest of it needs to get back into the motion of it. So they say lower fiber, just to not have a complete disaster, which worked for me. And I just felt naturally, as I felt I needed to introduce more foods, I just did, kind of one thing at a time, a bit like when you have your stoma. Anyone who's got an ileostomy or a colostomy would know, you just introduce foods one at a time. You kind of do that again with your reversal, but you can do it a little bit quicker, because your bowel's kind of a bit it just needs a little while to settle down, and then it can just you can start to eat different foods. But the actual recovery, top tips, have Sudocrem by every toilet in your house, and use it like a barrier. Don't just use it when you've gone past the point of no return. Use it as a barrier, because it's going to save you from a lot of discomfort at a time when you're already in a bit of discomfort. And the wet flushable wipes as well. The toilet wipes that are like safe to flush, have those by your toilet as well, because they are also going to be a lifesaver. But I just think you just have to kind of, positive outlook helps. I think if you feel negative about it, then you're kind of setting yourself up for negative connotations around it. But if you think, no, let's just like smash this reversal, let's get my life back, for me, it was a case of getting my life back. Some people having a stoma is getting their life back. That's different. That's a totally different way of like looking at it. But for me, it just, and my advice would be just to prepare for the going home after a reversal. Like, just make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids as well. Like, just take it easy, let yourself heal. Don't lift anything because you're still risk of a hernia. Like, kind of just similar to when you came home with a stoma, but just a lot quicker. And as long as you kind of follow that advice, like, I love it. Like, now some people have like a really loose bowel movement after having a reversal, but mine were like very sporadic. So like 1 minute they were kind of loose, so the next minute it was difficult to go to the toilet, which was very painful actually, because that was like the last thing you needed. But then you just kind of react to that. So I just got like kind of things like a little glass of prune juice each morning, just to try and keep things regular, kind of like peppermint capsules, peppermint water, things like that, just to like help things move. And then once things move, then it's all a little bit more comfortable. And now when I had my reversal in August last year, and I would say maybe after a few months, I would say I was kind of back to like normal, if that's even a thing anymore. But but now, like, I go to the toilet more often than I ever did before, so it's more frequent. But like the consistency of my bowel movements are like normal again. So like, and so that's my experience. And like I had like 10 centimeters of my bowel removed. So, and sometimes I can feel that like that part is missing. It's a really strange feeling, but so I'm aware of it. Like, I'm not just like, oh, I never had a stoma. Like, there's definitely things that have changed about me, but like, it's totally manageable. Like, I can, and I'm not in the pain that I used to be in before when my bowel was attached to my uterus. So yeah, I had a really positive reversal experience, and it's made me kind of like I'm really grateful for, like, I've got a lot more respect for like the life that I didn't have respect for before. And now I'm like, I can eat these nuts. I can eat anything with a skin now. It's just like, I just really, sometimes I eat stuff like that and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I can eat this now. Like, so that's kind of like my way of looking at it. I'm just like, well, I've just got to be grateful for what you can do now, and try and just move forward now. They've got to put those things behind you and move on. So yeah, it was quite a good reversal experience for me, definitely.
From an IVF point of view and endometriosis, what does the future look like? Because people are going to be questions.
Yeah. Yeah, people could definitely, and they can definitely like message me as well. Like, it's it affects so many people. But we now that like I've healed and I've had my reversal, like so we did, our funding was NHS funded. We qualified for NHS funding for IVF. Because I had the stoma surgery, you only get a 12-month funding. So we had to request that our funding was extended. Our clinic, who we're doing our IVF with, they actually did that on our behalf. And so we managed to get a 6-month extension to our funding, which gives up until April this year to sort of use the funding. So we always just said, look, last year, 2024 was like, fix me. 2025 is IVF. So yeah, this year is, so now we've got, like I say, we've got up until April to use our funding to sort of start. But the clinic knows us because we already effectively started, because we got to the point of having like a scan. So now we'll just pick up there, they'll just scan again. And then from that point, then you'll just start. So yeah, we're kind of like keeping it secret from our friends and family's exact dates and stuff. So because there's an element of privacy, but I'm happy to talk about it, like, generally, because it affects so many people, and I would hate to think people are going through it in silence as well, because this is the whole point of like things like this, isn't it? Talking, because we've got to share and we've got to like help each other. And the future looks like we should be able to do IVF now. So was the ultimate aim. So a year later, we're here.
Right, let's flip over to Mel. Mel, oh, what a woman. Hey,
Yeah.
Huh? Oh.
What are you giving us that face for? As if I'm
No, she's amazing, and she's like
I'm just Mel, and I've always been quite I don't know, how would you describe me?
Like an optimistic, kind of like positive, like
yeah.
You always make the most of like
I've tried to do, like, I was just saying to Sam earlier, I went to the O2 last night, see Peter Kay, and I was like, yesterday morning I was like, oh God, I said I'd drive, didn't I? But I did it, and I had a good time. I've got accessible seating because I've got my stoma. I can get anyway. So yeah, I got in at like 12:30 last night. So, but yeah, I like to book things and keep going. But anyway, I'll start from the beginning then.
Yeah.
So I'm Mel. I'm 47 now. So my story with my stoma or bowel started 2021. Basically, when you shower and you have a wash and you do everywhere, and I used to feel like this little thing in bottom of my bottom, and I was like, there's nothing. And then I just thought it was just always around. I could feel it, and I didn't even think about anything. But so that was like July 21. And then it started to, when I went to the toilet, I'd see some blood on the tissue. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it started to hurt a bit. So I went to the doctors, and they did the test. They put the fingers and, and they just said, well, it doesn't feel like anything sinister. It's probably polyp, hemorrhoids. I mean, I've had 2 children, but I've never had piles of hemorrhoids. So I think apparently I'm lucky. So I was like, okay, I trusted. And they said, well, I hadn't lost any, wasn't any weight loss, no history of bowel disease, cancer.
Your age as well.
Oh, my age. Oh, yeah, I was too young. So that time I was 43. Yeah, I think, 43. So I just went, okay then. And then I'd say it got to like September. I had really bad like toilet. So I rang up the doctor to get an appointment, and they just did on the phone one, because he goes, well, you've already been in and had a check, like, I think, so it's just going to be piles. And I was piled off with Anusol, all the creams and things, and then some laxatives to help me go to the toilet, because I said sometimes it feels like it's quite hard to get the toilet out, or it feels like I need to go to the toilet and there's nothing really coming out. But
did you say you felt like there was like something in the way?
Yeah.
You felt like you almost felt like you could feel something.
Yeah.
So then they said.
So then when I woke up one night, this was November 21, in the night, and I was like, I felt like the pain of labour, but in my bum. And now I look back and I think what had actually happened is it somehow had come out of my bottom hole, and it was on the outside. But I presumed it was like a hemorrhoid thing, and I was in so much pain. I didn't get any sleep, so I rang in my work and I just said, look, I'm going back to the doctors. And it must have popped back in. I know it sounds gross now.
But piles do that, don't they?
Yeah, so the pain went, but I did ring the doctors, and again, I went in, had a check, and they said it didn't feel, it was the wrong texture. And it was so painful that I literally, when she put her fingers up there, I just like put my hands against the wall. I always remember the pain. And she was like, well, if it was cancer, if it is anything bad, it wouldn't hurt. So all those things, I was like, well, she says it's not this, it's not that. I haven't got the symptoms, but I persuaded her to refer me for a colonoscopy. And then, I'd never dealt with anyone having that experience, anyone in my family or my friends, it's just, no one's ever spoken about bowels, no one's had a problem. So this was probably like my 4th or 5th time of like literally speaking to a doctor, whether it's the phone or in person. So in January 22, I went to my colonoscopy. I got like a 2-week, I got a phone call, like, come in. So I went in. I remember going into Watford on my own, because I was like, well, I'm just going to go in and have this colonoscopy. And I was the last one on the ward to go in. And I was like, oh, like texting like my husband going, well, I'm still not down yet. And then it was not the colonoscopy, I had this sigmoid.
Flexible sigmoid.
Oh, that's it, yeah. So I think they were just saying, Robert, just do that, I'll shut her up. So I went in, obviously in the lovely shorts you have. And the first, he put the camera thing in, and I just always remember like looking up, and he went, "Yeah, that's cancer." I went, "Sorry? Like, what are you mad?" Like, because I didn't have the sedation, I had the gas and air. And I didn't even, because I was on the gas as well, I was like,
no, you're joking.
So he didn't go any further because he couldn't go any further because the tumour was in the way of my very bottom of my bottom. So I went back to the ward and I thought, hang on. So then this was in the ward of other people coming. So they're all going home and I was sort of like waiting for him to come to tell me. And you see in films or programmes and you have like 6 or 7 people like around your bed and I was just sat there like, have I got like rectal cancer? It just came in my brain. And he went, yes, and you'll probably end up having a bag. And you go, what? And I just was like, I didn't know what to do, like in my head, but I still couldn't, I didn't cry. I just was, okay, well, this is what wasn't I expecting. And I know it sounds weird, but I went, I'm going to New York in a few weeks. I've already planned all my, like my daughter had gone to uni. Well, she was finished, like she'd done her A-level, was she doing it? Oh, she was at the end, and I was like, right, I want to go. My husband doesn't care about going. I'm going with a friend. And that was all planned. I'd already wanted to do this all my life. Anyway, so he went, well, you can still go. So I was like, all right.
Good.
Anyway, I must have just put it all to the back of my brain. So then he was like, right, you're going to be on the 2-week pathway. He goes, it's very, very low. So you'll have to have radiotherapy, chemotherapy to shrink it. If it doesn't shrink, basically, his sort of words were game over, really. You just have to, you wouldn't be able to take it out where it is. It's impossible because it's so big. And so I had all the scans. It hadn't spread. And that was really, really lucky. So it hadn't gone anywhere else, not in my lymph node, not in my lungs or my liver. So I had all those scans. And I went along and I just, for some reason, I'd put it in my head, it hasn't spread. And I don't know why, but I just had the attitude.
Your way.
I just was like, no, yeah. So I went to New York, I came back, and then I started my radiotherapy, which was in Mount Vernon, which is probably half an hour away from here. And I found it was quite quick blasts because some people do 5 weeks. I did 5 days. So the first time I was like, oh, this is all right. I can, because you go in the tube and they do whatever. But by day 3, I was like, oh my God, like in the nighttime, it was just I remember ringing up like the line they give you, like if emergency, like, hey, just the burning sensation down. It was, yeah. So
you had no control over it either, did you?
No,
you couldn't control. I remember you being like, you left the house once, I think. And you were like, you got down like 2 seconds away, and you had to like come back because you. I thought it'd be
get some air. I'd take my dog around the corner for a walk. I mean, he's only a small dog. And I remember ringing my husband, going, I could feel it like the leakage coming down. I was like, you have to come and help me. I can't walk back. Anyway, so I had the radiotherapy, and then I went to the same hospital and had 4 rounds of chemo, which was 2 hours on a drip, and then tablets for 2 weeks at home, and then you have a week off. That was brutal, but it did the trick. And I just kept thinking, right, I've got 1 more cycle to go. And I remember the 3rd cycle, I was like, I can do another one. I didn't get sick. I was just really tired. And it was one where if the cold hit you when you walked out of the chemo ward, you'd choke and you'd have to have a scarf and a hat and all this. And they didn't tell me the first time to bring that, but I don't know, I think they were really lovely in there. That's why when I came out, I really want to work for a charity or help people because they were lovely. And I met so many people in there who were like, some people there were just there to keep their life going. Like they knew they were going to only have maybe another couple of years. And it was so touching. And because you sat there and I felt so guilty. It's the Catholic guilt, the Catholic guilt of like, they're sitting there prolonging and I'm going, well, I'm hoping I can, get
on with it, yeah.
Anyway, I had my scan and it worked. It shrunk. But it was it shrunk enough so I could have my operation. And I don't know if it's fortunate for me, my husband's work, we have private healthcare. So I said to the guy, the surgeon, Mr. Arbuckle, I said, do you do private or can I use it? And I rang the company and they said yes. So I went, oh, so he did it as in the hospital where he works privately. So I was fortunate enough to have the operation. I had the scan and it had shrunk. Had the operation in November 22. I did meet the stoma nurse a couple of weeks before, so she could pinpoint where to put the stoma, so it wouldn't be so in the way, like yours was just an emergency.
I just had no choice. I woke up and it was wherever the surgeon decided it was. But you got yours marked. You stood up, sat down.
Yeah. And then I went. Sorry.
You were sighted properly, as they call it.
Yeah. So I'm on the left, so I've got a colostomy. So he said you're going to have your rectum removed. You're going to obviously have a stoma, and there wouldn't be any possible reversal possibility because you won't have, that bit's all got to come out. And he was very positive about it. He was like, 1 in 500 people have one, it's not uncommon. But I was like, well, I don't know anyone with one. So, it's quite unusual to me.
Yeah.
So, yes, I went into Bushy and I had my operation. It was 7 hours. It was quite funny, not funny, but you had to do a pregnancy test beforehand. But I'd forgotten to do it, so I didn't need a wee. They're like, well, you can't go down to the operation without doing this test. I was like, you really think I could be...
to you, that was just like not even a thing, was it?
Yeah, but I managed to do one.
If it had been me, I'd have been like, please be positive.
Yeah, I was like, no, I've been there. So, I went down and I had the epidural into my back and the anaesthetist, and the last thing you remember is just like count backwards, and then woke up and I remember going, I'm really hungry. That was the first thing I said. And it was successful, and he came, I can't remember if he came that night or that the next morning, and he just said it was a lot more aggressive than they thought, because they can only see what they can see when they go in and operate. And it had gone into my vagina, but so they took away some of the back of the wall of my vagina. I've still got, it's fine, but it's a bit bendy because it hasn't got the rectum to support it. So at that time I was like, I don't care about that. I just want to. He said he got all the lymph nodes out. Everything was done. The stoma was fine. So basically the stoma nurse was there for every day, helping, showing me. And I must admit, seeing it for the first time, I don't, it's like, as well, it's like, oh, okay, that's my new friend. But I never thought of it as a negative because it saved my life. And from when he said, it's that or nothing really, if you don't do treatment, that's, and my positivity was, well, I've got 2 children. I don't want children, so anymore. I'm in
ones you got.
I'm in a place where I can recuperate. I've got my husband. For me, I felt like I was in a lucky place to be able to go forward with my life, and I've always thought, it's not going to stop me. I will just adapt if I need to. But the only thing with the stoma was that I didn't really have much choice. When the stoma nurse was like, these are the bags, this is the company, this is what you have to do. I didn't know there was no other companies. I didn't know there was different type bags. So it was all that bit. And you think, God, is that really...
It's all stuff we now know. Like, I was the same. I just took for my stoma nurse. It's exactly the same to me. These are the stoma bags. These are what you have to use. And that was that. Now we know. Obviously, you're experienced more, and it's like now there's plenty of companies out there. There's different types of bags. You can try different things. You don't have to stick with it. But that's something we only know now, isn't it? But that's all part of.
I do think having it. It's obviously a massive life change. I never knew anyone with a stoma before. A lot of people have said that even immediate family have gone, I don't know how you do it. I said, but I don't have a choice, do I? Yeah. And for me, I said, I'd rather it have been me to have this than you lot, because I'm stronger than you in that sense. Other things, you know, I cry if my dog is sad, but I can't cry for myself, and I don't know what that is about me. It's just,
I think it's like that's where we differ. Not that we both could be quite positive, and we both just focus on like good in things, and we try and take out of life what we can. But we viewed our stomas very differently, because, like Mel says, for her, it was literally saved her life. And if she didn't have a stoma, that's the case for a lot of people, you know, people who have different types of like bowel conditions who have to have their stomas. That is the case for them. They've got their life back by having a stoma. And then you've got other people like me who have got stomas and they're always going to be reversed and they hate having them. And then it depends on like where you are in your life. It depends on your personal circumstances. It just depends on so many different things on how we view them. But it's not right or wrong. And that's something that we've learned, which is obviously why we do our page as well, because we're two different. Our stoma experiences are totally different in that view, in that perspective. But it works really well for us because Mel is, you know, she's like the queen of colostomy, permanent life. This is what we're doing. And I'm like, no, like, let's get reversed. Let's, you know, I'm here for any reversal questions. So it kind of works really well for us, but it's also, we can learn a lot from each other. And I mean, like, you and Mel did so well. I know she had like the stoma nurses and stuff, but I was there like at the along when she was having her stoma, and I did not appreciate. I think I said to you at one point when I had my stoma, I can remember, I think I cried at you and I was like, I didn't appreciate how
you went through. I was like, Sam, you're high on drugs.
I was like off my head, like, but I meant it though. Like,
I know.
I didn't, as a friend trying to support Mel having her stoma, I didn't understand the gravity of how life-changing that was for her. And it wasn't until I then like had mine that I then realized what she had gone through in terms of her stoma. And it just made me like open my eyes and wake up and realize there are people who are out there going through things on their own. And it's really hard. Like, it's like when I used to be in pain with my endometriosis, you know, there was only so much I could say to like friends and family, like, I'm in pain. You know, people would then say to me, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm fine. Because I just didn't have the energy to say to somebody, this is actually what I'm feeling. It's so hard to tell people how you actually feel, because people who haven't gone through it, it's really hard for them to understand. And I think we can all relate to that. So it really gave me like an awareness of what you had gone through. And I think that helps in our page, because we can both be very empathetic now, because we've been through it with what people are going through. But we know it, we lived it. We're here to help people who don't have those support structures. And that's kind of why we do what we do now, isn't it? Like, you know, so we've been through it, haven't we? So it's mad.
I'm getting emotional listening to you talk about that. You know, it's
oh, sorry.
You know what it was like for your friend. You didn't fully appreciate it until you're actually going through it yourself. And I think even as family members, we're like, they get it and they understand it, but they only understand it to a certain level. And it's not until you are actually in that position, or you have someone else who's been through it, that they can relate to you. And that's what I love about our bowel community, because it's hanging out, it's being in the community of people who just get each other. And
I think I said to Mel at one point as well, when I first had my stoma, I said, I did not realize how supportive this bowel community was. Like, I've been in like different support groups, like endometriosis support groups and pregnancy support, all these kind of different groups. People are supportive, obviously. But the bowel community is just like a step up. Like, I don't know what it is about us all, but we just are like massive cheerleaders for each other, and there's no kind of judgment there. We all can just support, and it's just an amazing community, and I just love being part of it. And even though I haven't got my stoma anymore, I'm like, I did have one. I do know, like, I'm still here. Like, please let me in the community. Like, I'm still part of it, because it's just such a nice. It is such a nice supportive community, and people are just so honest with themselves, like with what they've gone through, and it's just amazing to have, especially if you are alone and you don't feel like you've got anyone to turn to. It's just nice things, like exactly like your podcast, getting other people to listen to it, to talk about their experiences. It can help people in so many ways. Like, it's a really good thing to be able to do, I think. Definitely.
So at what stage did you decide to go through and just go public and put your page together on Instagram, the two of you together?
Okay, so when I obviously was diagnosed, I joined a few groups, but I didn't really do much on Facebook. And then Instagram, I've always had Instagram, but my daughter, who's 20, you know, she used it more than me, and I'd be like, "Oh, where did you see that?" She'd be like, "Instagram." I'd be like, "Oh, okay." And then once Sam became a stomate or whatever, and also obviously when you didn't have yours, I still felt alone because I didn't really alone in the sense of I even looked up like groups local to me on Facebook if there was anything. There was nothing even for bowel cancer. There was nothing. There was like a group on a Saturday, but like half an hour away, but it was not really what I wanted. So I would talk to people, and there was some woman I spoke to in New Zealand who'd had the operation at the same time as me, and we would chat, and that really helped me because she had exactly what I was going through, you know. But when Sam got not hers, I just thought, well, I'm helping you, and I just went. I don't know what it came.
I think you just said to me. I just said, "Should we do an Instagram? Do you want to do?" I think you just said to me, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" Like, yeah, I'm not very like.
I just thought it was very odd to have me, who's got my permanent one, and then you to get
temporary one,
and we're both friends who. We met in 2018 at work. I joined, you'd already started.
No stomas involved at that point.
Just bowel problems. You had endometriosis.
I had endometriosis, but I was suffering in silence.
So, and then I left there in about a year and a half. We stayed friends through lockdown, and we've always because we got on quite well, didn't we?
We've always stayed friends, like you do.
And then obviously I told you I had cancer.
Yeah.
And it was a big shock. So you all supported me, you know, in just being friends as normal. And then when you were going for yours, I was very concerned, like, because I hadn't heard from Sam and her operation was meant to be about an hour or so.
Yeah, it was,
So
6 hours later in ICU. It was...
When you said you'd actually got a stoma, my heart dropped and I thought, oh, this is not what you expected, you know. And I just thought I had time to think about it, even though it was a shock when you see it, but you didn't. And I know how long reversals from reading about these can take because you're on the NHS and reversal is not priority. And I just thought this is going to be not a good time for you. I didn't tell you that at the time.
No, but I know. Yeah, I know that you were thinking that.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I just suddenly thought, do you just make a page?
Yeah. And I think it helped. Like I probably wouldn't have made a page on my own.
No, I wouldn't have done one on my own.
So I think the fact that we had each other, and also it helps. I think me sort of like being thrown into it as a shock. I think it kind of helped me as well because even though I was fumbling through, not really knowing what I was doing with my own stoma, it was really great for me to then have people on our page who were like saying, "Oh, I've had this," and I was like, "Oh, I can learn from you." So it's not just us like preaching to people. We want to hear like people's stories. We want to know like how are you getting on? Like we say to people, like, how are you? Like, what are you doing? Like, how did you get through this and stuff? And we have these conversations with people, and it actually helps us as well. And I think we just felt like we had something like a friendship, and we just felt like, why don't we just share this with people and help people because we can. Like, so why don't we? And then we just
the name. I was like, well, we are friends. I mean, at the time with stomas. So
Friends with Stomas was born, and here we are.
And we weren't.
It's just so helpful. It's full of all of FAQs and different tips that you've been through. I know, Mel, you put some good stuff in there, like what is a Barbie butt, you know, explaining it all. You talk about rectal cancer, and Sam, you were mentioning endometriosis, and you took us through your reversal. I can remember watching that journey and you've been in hospital, and I was like, fingers crossed, this is new. It was really, really helpful. For sharing it. So I'll just say at this point to our audience and listeners, Friends with Stomas will be tagged in the show notes below, so do go over, give them a follow. I keep getting pop-ups on my screen, guys. Excuse me, I don't know what is happening.
I think as well, like just on that really quickly, is we're like not like influencers or this kind of social media. We are just ourselves. What you see here is us. Like, we are not fancy, we don't try and do anything smart. We're just like, this is a video of us like using a public toilet or doing this, or here's a post that we've made about this. We're very normal people who are like, and that's shown on our page. Like, you can look at our page and go, yeah, these people are just normal. Like, and I think that's what we like about us.
If you want to say normal.
Well, I mean, yeah, we think we're normal, but other people might not. But we think like it's realistic. Yeah, it's real. It's real life. It's not like fancy, you know, we're just who we are, and that is who we will always be, you know. So that's what we like about our page as well, isn't it? It's just realistic.
Well, I love it. I love it that you've both got two very different stories. You know, Mel, you have a complete zest for life now because you have your stoma and you're thriving and you just want to take on everything you can and say yes to everything. Sam, your story is completely different in that your stoma was unplanned. You did not want it. You hated it. You were able to get it reversed, and now life looks differently for you. Had they not have done that surgery, life could have been completely different, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
It's got you to where you are today, you know.
Yeah. But if I hadn't have had a reversal, I think I would have had to have gone through IVF. I mean, you can obviously have you can be pregnant with a stoma. I think that's what I would have had to have done. I would have had to have said, right, let's focus on IVF, and then I'll have to have a reversal at a later date. But my colorectal surgeon was just like, no, let's get you reversed. Without him, you know, he was fantastic. So yeah, life has so far now is turning out the way it should. Yeah.
So if there was another Sam listening today, someone out there with endometriosis, and there are quite a lot of our audience that do have it and are plagued because it's in around the bowel, and sometimes it's stuck to the bowel, and surgery is a possibility for them. What advice would you give them in hindsight, looking back at everything you've been through?
I mean, my advice for anyone who thinks they have endometriosis is just be an advocate for yourself. Do not let the doctors say it's just a bad period, or no, it's not in your bowel, or no, it's not as bad as you're saying it is, or here's some medication. Say, no, I need to see a gynae specialist. I need to speak to somebody who's an endometriosis specialist as well, and just be an advocate for yourself, because we know how it affects us. We know the pain. It's not just like your period. It's like lead up to your period, it's during your period, it's after the period. And don't be afraid to say to doctors, I get pain in my bowels when I'm going to the toilet. I have blood in my stool. This is not normal. And get a second opinion. I always think back to that doctor who outright told me they're not connected. And I just felt like saying, like, is it me? Is it in my head? And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's not in my head. Like, I am in chronic pain, like for like 3 out of 4 weeks of the month. This is not normal. So my advice to anybody would be just push for what you know you feel. Go to your GP. If your GP dismisses you, just demand that you want to go to an endometriosis specialist, or at least the gynae specialist, who can then refer you to an endometriosis specialist, because the wait lists are extortionate, and the quicker you can get on to one of those lists, the better your life will be, because you're one step ahead. But it's just, unfortunately, no, it's not. There's not enough awareness about endometriosis. You know, it's been around for decades, and it's still dismissed, and it doesn't get much funding in the grand scheme of all the different charities out there. You know, it doesn't. So it really takes us, what we call endo warriors, to like be voices, and we advocate ourselves, and we try and share as much awareness as we can. So yeah, my advice would just be, just don't be afraid. Don't suffer in silence, because it's not worth it. You need to be getting help that you're entitled to, you know, and get yourself on them wait lists now, and don't get dismissed. Don't let them say, you know, you're fine. Say, no, I need a laparoscopy. I need a specialist. So yeah, just don't delay. Just go for it. Definitely.
And Mel, what about you? Going through all those doctor's appointments, being given cream for piles, what would you say to someone out there in a similar situation?
As always, it is a subject, that a taboo subject, isn't it? You know, no one wants to go to the doctors about, you know, and like having a test to have like fingers up your bum. But if you've got blood, and you can feel maybe something, and if you can't quite go to the toilet, you think you're always going to the toilet more often, I would highly suggest going to the doctors, and don't get fobbed off with, if you know full well that your body is a big change in you, I would push for a colonoscopy. You know, at the end of the day, what is a couple of minutes with someone having it, or, you know, even like a couple of seconds at the doctor's, followed by a check at the hospital. They do it all the time. They don't care. They're there to help you. And the quicker you get checked, the quicker you can either, save your life is the most extreme, or you might not even have to end up having a stoma. It just all depends on how quickly you get yourself seen. And that's my advice. And the young thing, being told you're too young, I mean, you're never too young for anything. It's more a statistic, isn't it? A lot of older people have stomas and bowel cancer, but look at Adele Roberts. She had cancer. I've had cancer. That's only 2 people, but we're in our 40s.
People out there who are under the statistical age who have bowel cancer, and so it just proves.
Just try and get pushed, but go to the doctors first of all. Don't be embarrassed.
Yeah, definitely.
Ladies, it's been absolutely fabulous to have you come on here and share your stories with us today. Powerhouse, as I said at the start, and I will say it again, absolutely keep doing what you're doing on your social media. It's thriving, and I love that you're also thriving through life, one with Stoma, one with the reversal. So I wish you all the very best for the future, and with your health and with your IVF journey, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much for giving time of your day. It's been a privilege for me. So thank you.
Thank you for having us. We've loved it. Yeah, thank you.
Guys, that's us for today. So do come back and join us next week for another episode. But from Mel and Sam and myself today, it's over and out.
Bye.